I'm Allison Mitchell, 24 years old, and my life changed forever at our family dinner last spring. My parents beamed as they announced an $80,000 gift for my sister Megan's Paris fashion program. When I quietly asked about help with my nursing tuition, my father's face hardened. "You don't deserve any help," he said flatly. My mother nodded in agreement. Years of unfair treatment crystallized in that moment. I excused myself, tears streaming down my face, a new determination forming. Before I share how I transformed this rejection into the best thing that ever happened to me, let me know where you're watching from. Hit that like button and subscribe if you've ever had to prove someone wrong. Now let's dive into how I turned my family's dismissal into my greatest strength. The dinner announcement wasn't shocking. It was merely the culmination of a lifetime of favoritism. From our earliest childhood memories, Megan was clearly the golden child. At just 22, my younger sister was everything my parents valued: beautiful, charismatic, and socially ambitious. Meanwhile, I was the perpetual disappointment. Our birthday celebrations told the whole story. For Megan's 16th birthday, my parents rented a yacht, hired a DJ, and invited 50 of her closest friends. They spent thousands on catering and decorations, and gifted her a designer handbag that cost more than my first car. 3 months later, when I turned 18, a supposedly more significant milestone, they took me to dinner at Applebee's and forgot to buy a cake. When I mentioned it, my mother sighed. "We've been so busy with Megan's soccer tournament. You understand, right?" I always understood. I always had to understand. School events followed the same pattern. My parents never missed a single one of Megan's soccer games or cheerleading competitions. They'd arrive early with signs and flowers cheering loudly from the sidelines. For my debate, championships, and honor society inductions, they were conspicuously absent. Something came up at work was the usual excuse, though they mysteriously never had scheduling conflicts for Megan's events. Even our appearances became ammunition. Megan inherited our mother's slender frame and natural blonde hair. I took after my father's side, curvier with unruly brown hair that never quite behaved. "Why can't you put some effort into yourself like your sister?" my mother would ask, tugging disapprovingly at my sweatshirt. "Men don't want smart girls who look like they've given up." My high school graduation should have been a turning point. I was valedictorian, headed to a respected state university on a partial academic scholarship. My speech received a standing ovation. Afterward, in the parking lot, my parents presented Megan, a sophomore with middling grades, with a brand new BMW convertible. "For being such a supportive sister," my father said as Megan squealed with delight. I drove home in my 7-year-old Honda with a failing transmission which I'd purchased with my own savings from working weekends at the local grocery store. College only widened the gap. I chose nursing. Practical, challenging, and aligned with my desire to help others. My parents were underwhelmed. Nursing, my mother had said, her nose wrinkling. "Couldn't you aim higher like medical school? Or at least something more feminine?" Meanwhile, Megan announced she wanted to study fashion, merchandising, and brand development. My parents were ecstatic, already imagining her dressing celebrities or launching her own label. Never mind that her interest in fashion primarily consisted of spending their money on designer clothes and posting outfit pictures on Instagram. I worked 2 jobs through college, mornings at a coffee shop and weekend shifts at an assisted living facility. The partial scholarship covered about 40% of my tuition, but the rest came from loans in my own pocket. Megan attended the same university, but lived in a luxury apartment my parents paid for, complete with a monthly allowance that exceeded my combined income. "Megan needs more support to flourish," my mother explained once. "You've always been so independent." Independence wasn't a choice. It was the only option they'd given me. Whenever I struggled with finances, with the crushing workload of nursing clinicals combined with my jobs, Their response was always the same. You're stronger than your sister. You can handle it. Strength became my prison. The more capable I proved myself to be, the less help I received. Meanwhile, Megan's every whim was indulged under the guise of supporting her creative spirit. I tried everything to earn their approval. Perfect grades, extra certifications, community service. Nothing moved the needle. At family gatherings, my achievements were footnotes, while Megan's latest Instagram collaboration was headline news. By my final year of nursing school, I was exhausted from trying to please people who seemed constitutionally incapable of being proud of me. And then came that fateful dinner where they announced Megan's $80,000 Parisian adventure and told me in no uncertain terms that I deserved nothing. After the dinner announcement, I drove back to my apartment in a daze. The contrast between my sister's future and mine couldn't have been starker. While Megan would be strolling along the Seine, I'd be drowning in student debt. My apartment was exactly what you'd expect for someone working 2 jobs while in nursing school. A studio in a rundown building, with peeling paint and temperamental plumbing. The elevator had been temporarily out of service for the 2 years I'd lived there. That night, climbing 5 flights of stairs felt like scaling Everest. Inside, I collapsed onto my futon, which doubled as my bed, and stared at the water stain on the ceiling. It had grown since last month, forming an archipelago of brown islands against the off-white paint. I opened my laptop and pulled up my budget spreadsheet, a meticulous tracking of every dollar I earned and spent. The numbers hadn't changed since yesterday, but I needed to see them again to confirm the reality of my situation. Tuition due for final semester, $7.850. Current bank balance, $2.103.47. Expected income before deadline, $3.400 outstanding balance. On credit card, $1, $245.68 student loan. Total to date, $42, $750. The math was unforgiving. I'd been hoping for even minimal help from my parents. $3,000 would have made all the difference. Instead, they were sending my sister to Paris with $80,000. $80,000. I could have completed my entire nursing degree with that amount and had money left over. I could have had 1 job instead of 2, maybe joined study groups instead of rushing from class to work. I might have even had time for a social life. Out of morbid curiosity, I opened my parents' tax documents from last year. Dad had asked me to help organize their filing, ironically, because Megan was too busy. They had a combined income of over $350, $000. The interest alone on their investments could have covered both our educations. My phone buzzed. Rachel, my best friend since freshman year. "How'd dinner go?" her text read. I called her instead of texting back. When she answered, I couldn't speak. The tears came in a flood. "Allison, what happened?" Rachel's voice was instantly concerned. Between sobs, I explained the dinner, the Paris announcement, and my parents' cruel dismissal. "Those assholes," Rachel said when I finished. "I've kept quiet about your family for years, but I'm done. They're toxic, Ally. Cut them off. You don't need them." "I can't," I whispered. "They're my family." "Family doesn't treat each other like this," Rachel countered. "You deserve better." After we hung up, I sat in the dark contemplating my options. I could confront my parents, but years of experience suggested that would only result in being labeled jealous or ungrateful. I could cut them off completely, as Rachel suggested, but something in me wasn't ready for that final break. There was a third option. I opened my laptop again and navigated away from my depressing financial spreadsheet. Instead, I started researching nursing excellence scholarships and grants for final year students. Most deadlines had passed, but one caught my eye. The Callaway Foundation Nursing Leadership Grant, which included a full scholarship for final semester tuition. plus a guaranteed placement in their prestigious postgraduate program. The deadline was just 2 weeks away. The requirements were intimidating: exceptional academic standing, meaningful clinical experience, strong recommendation letters, and a compelling personal statement about overcoming adversity to pursue nursing. I stayed up until 3 a.m. reading about past recipients. They were extraordinary: nursing students who had overcome cancer, refugees who had escaped war zones, single parents, balancing childcare with medical training. Who was I compared to them? Just a girl whose parents liked her sister better. But as dawn broke, something hardened within me. My parents' favoritism was real. The financial discrimination was real. The years of emotional neglect were real. My struggle was valid even if others had faced worse. More importantly, I was a damn good nursing student. I had maintained a 3.9 gigapascals while working 2 jobs. My clinical evaluations were stellar. I had volunteered at a community health clinic despite my crushing schedule. I deserved this scholarship as much as anyone. And winning it would be the ultimate response to my parents' dismissal. I created a detailed application plan, mapping out every requirement against the tight 2-week deadline. Then I sent emails to my favorite professors requesting recommendation letters explaining the urgency. As the sun rose, fully painting my small apartment in golden light, I made myself a promise: if they think I don't deserve any help, I'll show them exactly what I deserve. The morning after my decision, I woke with purpose. I pulled out a notebook and created a detailed roadmap to independence and success. Step 1. Secure the Callaway Scholarship. Step 2. Graduate with honors. Step 3. Land a position at a prestigious hospital. Step 4. Build a life that needs no validation from my family. That same afternoon, I met with Dr. Jenkins, my academic advisor. His office was cluttered with medical textbooks and student thank you cards pinned to a bulletin board. "Allison, what brings you in today? Everything on track for graduation?" he asked, gesturing to the chair across from his desk. "Actually, I want to apply for the Callaway Foundation grant," I said, sliding the printout across his desk. "The deadline is in 2 weeks." Dr. Jenkins raised his eyebrows. "That's an extremely competitive scholarship. Why the sudden interest?" I hesitated, then decided on honesty. "My financial situation has changed. I need this to complete my degree without taking on more debt." He studied me for a moment, then nodded. "You're one of our strongest students. Your clinical evaluations are exceptional. I'll write you a recommendation, but you'll need to strengthen your practical experience. What do you suggest?" "Riverside Hospital has a part-time nursing assistant position open in their trauma department. It would look impressive on your application." But he paused, concern crossing his face. "You're already working 2 jobs. This would be a third." I thought about my sister packing designer clothes for Paris. "I can handle it." I applied for the hospital position that evening and was called for an interview the next day. When the nursing director asked why I wanted to work in trauma care, I gave an answer about professional development. I didn't mention my parents or the scholarship. This wasn't about them anymore. It was about me. I got the job. My new schedule was punishing. Morning classes, afternoon shifts at the hospital, evening coffee shop work, and weekends at the assisted living facility. Sleep became a luxury. Meals were often protein bars eaten between shifts. But every exhausting hour felt purposeful. Meanwhile, I maintained the facade with my family. At Sunday dinner that weekend, my parents couldn't stop talking about Megan's Paris preparations. "We've arranged for her to tour the Yves Saint Laurent archives," my mother gushed. "It's normally closed to students, but your father pulled some strings." "That's great," I said, pushing food around my plate. My feet ached from a double shift, and I had 3 chapters to read before morning. "What about you, Allison?" my father asked in afterthought. "How's school?" "Fine. Just busy with clinicals." I didn't mention the Callaway application or my new job. They didn't deserve to know. The hospital work was grueling but invaluable. On my third shift, I met Benjamin Crawford, the administrative director. He found me organizing supply closets at 2 a.m., the only quiet moment in my chaotic day. "You're the new nursing student, right?" he asked, leaning against the doorframe. "Why are you still here? Your shift ended hours ago." I explained about the trauma equipment, how I'd noticed inefficiencies in the organization system, and wanted to implement improvements I'd learned in my healthcare management elective. Benjamin listened thoughtfully, then said, "You know we have the Callaway Foundation board meeting here next month. They're always looking for innovative thinkers. Are you applying for their scholarship?" My heart raced. "Actually, yes. I'm working on my application now. Let me see it when you're done," he offered. I sit on the regional selection committee. That night, I worked on my personal statement until dawn, fueled by coffee and determination. I wrote about my passion for nursing, my experiences with elderly patients at the assisted living facility, the satisfaction of helping trauma victims at their most vulnerable moments. I wrote about financial struggles without mentioning my parents directly. A week into my new routine, I received an academic recognition for clinical excellence. The nursing faculty had unanimously nominated me for outstanding performance during my pediatric rotation. It wasn't a scholarship, just a certificate, but it was validation of my hard work. When I mentioned it casually at dinner, my mother nodded absently. "That's nice, dear. Did you hear Megan hit 10,000 followers on Instagram? She's been approached for a brand partnership." My father beamed. "That's my girl making connections already. Paris will open even more doors." I excused myself early, claiming homework. In my car, I placed the certificate carefully in my application folder. Their indifference couldn't diminish this achievement. I would collect these small victories, one by one, building a foundation for the life I deserved. 2 weeks after beginning my scholarship quest, I was running on fumes, working 3 jobs while maintaining straight, as had left me hollow-eyed and perpetually exhausted. I had lost 7 pounds from my already slim frame, and my hands shook slightly from caffeine and fatigue. It was in this state that my grandmother, Catherine, arrived for her annual spring visit. My father's mother was a formidable woman in her 70s, sharp-minded, outspoken, and fiercely independent since my grandfather's death a decade ago. When I arrived for the obligatory family dinner to welcome her, Grandma Catherine took one look at me and frowned. "Allison, you look terrible," she said, bypassing pleasantries. "What on earth is going on with you?" "I'm fine, Grandma," I said, forcing a smile. "Just busy with school." My mother interjected. "Allison insists on working all these extra jobs. We've told her to focus on her studies, but she's always been stubborn." Grandma Catherine's eyes narrowed slightly, but she said nothing more as we moved to the dining room. Throughout dinner, the conversation revolved around Megan's upcoming Parisian adventure. My parents had apparently added a Mediterranean cruise to her study abroad package. "It's important to experience the full European cultural immersion," my father explained, pouring more wine. "The connections she'll make could define her entire career." "How generous," Grandma Catherine remarked, then turned to me. "And what about your nursing program, Allison? How are your parents supporting your education?" An awkward silence fell over the table. My father cleared his throat. "Allison is very independent. She's handling her education herself." "Is that right?" Grandma Catherine's tone was deceptively casual. After dinner, while my parents showed Megan's Paris apartment photos to Grandma, I slipped out to the back porch for air. Minutes later, the door opened behind me. "May I join you?" Grandma Catherine asked, already settling into the chair beside me. "Of course." She studied me silently for a moment. "Now, tell me the truth. What's happening with you? And don't say nothing." "I wasn't born yesterday." Perhaps it was exhaustion, or perhaps it was the genuine concern in her eyes, but something broke inside me. The whole story poured out. The years of favoritism, the Paris announcement, my parents' cruel dismissal, my desperate scramble for the Callaway scholarship, the 3 jobs, the sleepless nights. By the time I finished, tears were streaming down my face. Grandma Catherine sat very still, her expression unreadable. I had no idea. She finally set her voice tight. No idea it had gone this far. It's okay, I said, wiping my face. I'm handling it. It is most certainly not okay. Her voice had a steel edge I'd rarely heard. This is not how I raised my son to behave. She reached into her purse and pulled out her checkbook. I'm writing you a check for your tuition. Right now. No, I said, firmly placing my hand over hers. Thank you, but no. I need to do this myself. Don't be ridiculous. You're killing yourself with this schedule. I need to prove that I can do this, I insisted. But maybe you could help in other ways. I need strong recommendation letters for the scholarship. Someone who can speak to my character. Grandma Catherine considered this, then nodded. I suppose I can respect your decision, though I don't agree with it. I'll write your letter and it will be exceptional. What I didn't expect was what happened next. After our conversation, Grandma Catherine marched back into the house and confronted my parents directly. I followed, horrified, yet unable to stop what was unfolding. Robert and Diana Mitchell, she announced in the living room, we need to discuss your appalling treatment of your eldest daughter. My father looked up, startled. Mother, what are you talking about? $80,000 for Megan's fashion adventure, while Allison works 3 jobs to pay tuition, telling her she doesn't deserve help. Have you lost your minds? My mother's face flushed. Catherine, with all due respect, how we parent our children is our business. It became my business when I discovered my granddaughter is working herself into collapse while you play favorites, Grandma fired back. Robert, I raised you better than this. Mother Allison has been manipulating you, my father said, throwing me an accusatory glance. She's always been jealous of the attention Megan receives. Megan needs this opportunity for her career. Allison is doing fine on her own. Manipulation! Grandma Catherine laughed bitterly. The only manipulation I see is how you've convinced yourselves this treatment is justifiable. Megan, who had been silent until now, suddenly spoke up. Grandma, it's not what you think. I earned this opportunity. My social media presence is already opening doors. Allison chose a safe, practical career. I'm taking risks. Risks. With your parents' money, Grandma Catherine shook her head. That's not risk, dear. That's privilege. The argument escalated, voices raising. My father accused me of turning his mother against them. My mother suggested I was playing victim. Megan tearfully claimed I was trying to ruin her once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I stood in the doorway watching my family fracture along fault lines that had been there all along. Part of me wanted to backpedal to smooth things over as I always had. But another part, the part growing stronger every day, knew this confrontation was long overdue. When I finally left that night, the divisions were clear. My parents and Megan stood united against what they perceived as my betrayal. Grandma Catherine stood firmly in my corner. And I walked away understanding that some family bonds can't survive when built on such uneven ground. 3 days after the confrontation with Grandma Catherine, I was putting the finishing touches on my Callaway scholarship application. My personal statement had gone through 12 revisions. My resume highlighted every relevant experience and accomplishment. My recommendation letters from Dr. Jenkins and 2 clinical supervisors were glowing. Grandma Catherine had written a character reference that brought tears to my eyes. Benjamin from the hospital had reviewed everything and pronounced it exceptionally competitive. The application deadline was the following morning. I planned to submit it that night after my hospital shift, then allow myself a rare evening off to celebrate clearing this hurdle. I had just packed up my laptop when my phone buzzed with a text from Dr. Jenkins. Need to speak with you immediately about your Callaway application. Please, come to my office. The urgency in his message sent a chill through me. I rushed to campus, finding him still in his office despite the late hour. Allison, sit down. He said, his expression grave. I received a strange call today from the scholarship committee. Someone contacted them, claiming you falsified your clinical hours and volunteer work. What? That's ridiculous. I have documentation for everything. I know, he said, raising a calming hand. I vouched for you immediately. I've personally verified your hours. But the committee is concerned. They've flagged your application for additional review, which could delay your consideration past the current cycle. My mind raced. Who would do this? Then, with sickening clarity, I knew. Was it my sister who called them? I asked quietly. Dr. Jenkins looked uncomfortable. The caller didn't identify themselves to me. But the committee chair mentioned the person claimed to be a family member concerned about academic integrity. Megan. It had to be. But how had she even known about my application? I thanked Dr. Jenkins and drove straight to my parents' house, fury building with each mile. I found Megan alone in the kitchen, scrolling through her phone. How did you find out about my scholarship application? I demanded, without preamble. She looked up, startled, then composed herself. I have no idea what you're talking about. Someone called the scholarship committee, claiming I falsified my application, conveniently, right before the deadline. Someone who identified themselves as family. A flicker of guilt crossed her face before she shrugged. Maybe I mentioned to Mom and Dad that you were applying for some big scholarship. I saw the papers in your bag when you were here for dinner. So what? They've flagged my application for review. I could miss the entire cycle because of this. Look, Megan said, putting down her phone, I just mentioned it. Whatever Mom and Dad did with that information isn't my fault. I stared at her. This sister I'd grown up with, shared a bathroom with, once protected from bullies. Why, Megan? Why would you even look through my bag? Her expression hardened. You turned Grandma against us. She's threatening to change her will because of you. Dad is furious. Just then, my parents walked in, stopping short when they saw me. Allison, my father said coolly. This is unexpected. Did you call the Callaway Foundation? I asked, cutting to the chase. Did you tell them I falsified my application? My mother looked away, but my father held my gaze. We made a call, yes. As your parents, we were concerned about the pressure you're putting on yourself. These lies about working 3 jobs, about struggling financially. Lies. I interrupted, incredulous. I am working 3 jobs, I am struggling. Because you're giving Megan $80,000 while telling me I deserve nothing. Fashion is Megan's passion, my mother interjected. The industry is incredibly competitive. This opportunity could make her career. And nursing isn't competitive, saving lives isn't valuable. You were never going to win that scholarship anyway, my father said dismissively. We were saving you from disappointment. Megan needs Paris. Her future depends on it. And my future doesn't matter at all. You'll be fine, my mother said with a wave of her hand. Nurses always find jobs. In that moment, something fundamental shifted inside me. The last lingering hope that they might eventually see me, value me, treat me fairly. It died completely. I'm moving out, I announced. Completely. I won't be coming to family dinners anymore. I won't be calling. I won't be visiting. You've made your choice clear, and now I'm making mine. Don't be dramatic, my father scoffed. Where will you go? How will you manage? I've been managing without you for years, I replied. The only difference now is I won't be pretending we're a normal family anymore. I left that night and drove straight to Rachel's apartment, where she listened to my story with growing outrage. Stay with me, she offered immediately. My roommate moved out last month. The rent's cheaper than your place, and you can drop the coffee shop job. I can't impose. It's not imposing. It's friends helping friends. something your family wouldn't understand. That night, lying on Rachel's sofa, I hit rock bottom. I questioned everything: my worth, my choices, my ability to judge character. If my own family could actively sabotage my future, what did that say about me? What had I done to deserve such treatment? The next day, physically and emotionally exhausted, I dragged myself to my hospital shift. Benjamin found me in the break room staring blankly at my cold coffee. "Allison, you okay? You don't look well." The simple kindness in his voice nearly undid me. I explained the situation in halting sentences, expecting professional distance or worse judgment. Instead, he pulled up a chair. "My father was an alcoholic," he said quietly. "He drained our college fund to pay gambling debts when I was 17. My brother dropped out to work full-time. I worked night security at this very hospital to put myself through school." "How did you deal with it?" I asked. "One day at a time, and I remembered that success is the best revenge." He smiled slightly. "The committee already has your application. Let me make some calls. We can still fix this." For the first time in days, I felt a flicker of hope. Not because someone was rescuing me, but because I wasn't alone. Other people had faced similar betrayals and survived. Thrived even. As Benjamin left, I made a new resolution. I would succeed, not despite my family's treatment, but because of it. Their lack of faith had forced me to develop a strength and resilience I might never have discovered otherwise. Success would be my revenge, and I would make it spectacular. The weeks following my family's betrayal were the hardest of my life. I moved in with Rachel, downsizing my already minimal possessions to fit into half of her small apartment. The reduced rent meant I could quit the coffee shop job, but the damage to my Callaway application required additional documentation and interviews that ate into my precious free time. Benjamin had worked magic behind the scenes, convincing the committee to keep my application active, while I gathered evidence to disprove the false accusations. Dr. Jenkins provided detailed logs of my clinical hours. My supervisors from all 3 jobs wrote statements confirming my employment. Even Grandma Catherine sent a notarized letter vouching for my character. Meanwhile, the physical toll mounted. I lost another 5 pounds, my clothes hanging loose on my frame. Dark circles became permanent fixtures under my eyes. My hands developed a slight tremor from stress and caffeine. One morning, I caught a glimpse of myself in the bathroom mirror and barely recognized the gaunt face staring back. "You need to eat something substantial," Rachel insisted, placing a plate of eggs and toast in front of me. "You can't help patients if you become one yourself." I was too tired to argue. The simple meal was the first real food I'd had in days, and I suddenly realized I was starving. "I have some money saved," Rachel offered hesitantly. "Let me help with your tuition. You can pay me back after graduation." "No," I said firmly. "I appreciate it, but I need to do this my way." "Your way is killing you, ally." Perhaps she was right, but I couldn't accept help. Not now. If I faltered, if I leaned on others too much, it would validate my parents' belief that I couldn't succeed on my own. The universe seemed determined to test my resolve. 2 days after moving in with Rachel, my ancient Honda finally gave up. The transmission failed completely on my way to a night shift, leaving me stranded in the rain 3 miles from the hospital. I arrived soaking wet and an hour late after walking the remainder of the distance. The following week, I developed bronchitis but couldn't afford to miss work or classes. I pushed through fevers and coughing fits, dosing myself with over-the-counter medications that barely touched the symptoms. When I finally saw a clinic doctor, the bill wiped out my small emergency fund. Then came the textbook crisis. The final nursing courses required specialized texts that cost nearly $800. I had budgeted for them, but after the car repairs and medical bills, the choice became clear: books or food. I chose books, subsisting on ramen and peanut butter for 2 weeks, Throughout these trials, an unexpected support system emerged. My hospital colleagues noticed my situation and responded with quiet kindness. Nancy, an ER nurse in her 50s, began bringing extra portions of homemade meals. "My kids are grown and I always cook too much," she'd say, pressing containers into my hands. The respiratory therapist who'd overheard my coughing offered leftover antibiotics from his own recent prescription. The overnight security guard gave me rides home when he saw me waiting for the bus at 2 a.m. Benjamin proved to be more than just a professional connection. He became a mentor and friend, checking in regularly on my scholarship status and general well-being. "The committee is impressed with your documentation," he reported one evening, "and even more impressed that you maintained your performance through all this. They're looking for resilience, Allison. You're demonstrating it in real time." I clung to these encouraging words during a chance encounter with Megan at the mall. I had gone to return a sweater, an unnecessary expense I couldn't justify keeping, when I literally bumped into my sister outside a high-end boutique, her arms laden with shopping bags. "Allison," she said, clearly surprised. "You look different." Her eyes took in my weight loss and exhausted appearance. "Just busy," I replied, attempting to move past her. "Wait," she said, blocking my path. "I wanted to tell you. Mom and Dad bought me an apartment in Paris. Not just for the program, but to keep afterward. For visits and stuff." She delivered this news with a strange mix of boastfulness and guilt, as if simultaneously wanting to hurt me and seek my approval. "Congratulations," I said flatly. "Excuse me, I need to get to work." "You're still mad," she observed. "Look, I didn't know they would call the scholarship people. I just mentioned your application." "It doesn't matter anymore, Megan. You're getting everything you want. I'm getting experience, resilience, independence. Maybe those will serve me better in the long run than handouts." Her expression flickered between anger and confusion. "They're not handouts when it's family. That's just love." "Then I guess they just love you more," I said, finally stepping around her. "Enjoy Paris." I walked away without looking back, her words echoing in my head. "They're not handouts when it's family. That's just love." The simplicity of her worldview was almost enviable. In Megan's mind, our parents' extreme favoritism was normal, natural, merely an expression of love that I somehow hadn't earned. That night after my hospital shift, I sat in Rachel's apartment, completing my scholarship application. The deadline extension expired the next day. Every document was in place, every allegation disproven, every recommendation secured. As I prepared to submit, Grandma Catherine called. "I've been thinking about you," she said, without preamble. "Have you been eating properly?" The question, so grandmotherly in its directness, made me smile despite my exhaustion. "I'm managing." "That's not an answer," she huffed. "I'm coming by tomorrow with groceries. No arguments." True to her word, she arrived the next afternoon with bags of practical, nutritious foods. As we unpacked them, she mentioned casually, "I've revised my will. Just so you know." "Grandma, you don't need to." "It's already done," she interrupted. "You and Megan will receive equal shares. Your parents are unhappy about it, but it's my money and my decision. I don't want to come between you and Dad." "You didn't," she said firmly. "He did that himself with his unconscionable behavior. Now eat something while I tell you about my bridge club scandal." Her visit provided temporary lightness in an otherwise grinding existence. After she left, I submitted my completed scholarship application, then collapsed into bed for 12 straight hours. The longest I'd slept in months. The next morning, I woke to an email from the Callaway Foundation. My application was officially being considered, and I was scheduled for a final interview in 2 weeks. It wasn't victory yet, but it was a chance. All I had ever wanted. The weeks leading up to my scholarship interview passed in a blur of clinical rotations, hospital shifts, and intense preparation. I researched previous Callaway scholars, practiced answers to likely questions, and even invested in a secondhand suit for the interview, navy blue conservative professional. Meanwhile, Megan had departed for Paris with much fanfare. My parents threw an elaborate going-away party to which I wasn't invited, though I saw the photos on social media. My sister's Instagram account, once filled with mall selfies and brunch photos, transformed into a carefully curated feed of Parisian landmarks, fashion events, and champagne brunches with new French friends. "Have you seen Megan's Instagram?" Rachel asked one evening, scrolling through her phone. "She's got a highlight reel called My Parisian Life, with videos of her apartment. It's bigger than our place." "I don't follow her anymore," I replied, focusing on my textbook. Final exams were approaching, and the Callaway interview loomed large on my horizon. "Probably for the best," Rachel agreed, putting down her phone. "How's the scholarship looking?" "The interview is next week. Benjamin says I'm a strong contender, but there are 15 finalists for 5 spots." I attended a Thanksgiving dinner at the hospital, rather than facing my parents' home. The nursing staff had organized a potluck for those working the holiday shift, and the camaraderie felt more genuinely familial than any recent gathering with my blood relatives. Nancy, my nurse friend, nudged me as we filled our plates. "Benjamin can't stop singing your praises to the administration. I've never seen him champion a student like this." "He's been incredibly supportive," I acknowledged. "I don't know why he's taken such an interest." "He sees himself in you," she said simply. "His story isn't mine to tell, but let's just say he understands family disappointment better than most." The day of my Callaway interview arrived crisp and clear. I had rehearsed answers to every conceivable question, prepared examples of my clinical excellence, and developed thoughtful responses about my nursing philosophy. Rachel had helped me practice until midnight, playing the role of stern interviewer. The actual interview took place in a conference room at Riverside Hospital. 5 committee members sat opposite me. 3 nursing directors from regional hospitals, a Callaway Foundation representative, and to my surprise, Benjamin. "Ms. Crawford has recused himself from voting on your application due to your working relationship," the foundation representative explained. "But he requested to observe." Benjamin gave me an encouraging nod as the questions began. Why nursing? What challenges had I overcome? How would this scholarship change my trajectory? What innovations might I bring to patient care? I answered each question clearly and authentically, drawing on experiences from my various jobs. When asked about overcoming challenges, I carefully described my financial struggles and work-school balance without mentioning my family directly. This wasn't about them anymore. It was about me, my journey, my determination. As the interview concluded, the nursing director from Mercy Hospital leaned forward. "One final question, Miss Mitchell. Your application was initially flagged for review due to allegations that were subsequently disproven. Can you speak to that experience?" I took a deep breath. I believe that adversity reveals character. When faced with that accusation, I didn't become defensive or give up. I methodically gathered evidence, worked with my mentors, and proved my integrity. That experience reinforced what nursing has taught me, that perseverance and ethical conduct are essential, especially when circumstances are unfair. Their impressed expressions told me I'd said the right thing. As I left the conference room, Benjamin gave me a subtle thumbs up. That evening, exhausted but relieved, I allowed myself a rare glass of wine with Rachel to celebrate completing this milestone. Whatever the outcome, I had done my best. My phone buzzed with a text from a number I didn't recognize. "Allison, it's Megan. Using a friend's phone. Need to talk. Can you call?" I hesitated, then dialed the number. Allison. Megan's voice sounded strange. Shaky, tearful. "I'm in trouble." "What's wrong? Are you okay?" No, she sniffled. I've been caught cheating on my fashion history final. They're threatening academic discipline. I didn't mean to cheat. I just didn't have time to study with all the social events. And now there's this party video going viral where I'm clearly not studying. As she continued, the story emerged in fragments. Megan had been living the influencer lifestyle, attending fashion shows and exclusive clubs, documenting every moment for her growing social media following. The actual studying had taken a back seat. When exams arrived, she'd panicked and used her phone to look up answers during the test. A vigilant proctor had caught her. Simultaneously, a video had surfaced showing Megan at a private club party the night before the exam, clearly intoxicated and boldly proclaiming she was too connected to fail. The clip had gone viral in Paris fashion circles, reaching her professors. "Mom and Dad are flying out tomorrow," she said miserably. "The school might expel me. All that money wasted. A year ago, I would have felt vindicated, even pleased. Now I felt a complex mixture of emotions. Concern for my sister, disappointment in her choices, and surprisingly, a flicker of sympathy. I'm sorry, Megan. That sounds really tough. You must be loving this," she said bitterly. "Perfect Allison, never making mistakes." "I've made plenty of mistakes," I replied. "Just different ones. And I'm not perfect, just hardworking." "Whatever," she muttered. "I have to go. My friends are taking me out to cheer me up. Maybe you should stay in and prepare for the academic review." "What's the point? I'm screwed anyway." After hanging up, I sat quietly processing the conversation. Rachel raised an eyebrow. "Trouble in Paris." "Megan's self-destructing," I explained. "Cheating scandal, viral party video, academic review." "Karma's a bitch," Rachel said, refilling her wine glass. "Toast to that." I shook my head. "It doesn't make me happy. It's just sad. All that opportunity wasted." Over the next week, the situation in Paris deteriorated. My parents called in favors, hired attorneys, and flew to Megan's rescue. According to Grandma Catherine, who kept me updated, they were throwing money at the problem. Donations to the school, promises of connections, anything to save Megan from consequences. "They're buying her a sports car to cheer her up," Grandma reported, disgusted. "Your father says she's too traumatized by the public embarrassment." Despite their efforts, the school imposed a one-semester suspension. Megan would return to the States for 6 months before being allowed to resume her studies. The luxury apartment would sit empty, its rent still due monthly. 2 days later, I received an email from the Callaway Foundation. Opening it with trembling fingers, I read, "Congratulations, Ms. Mitchell. We are pleased to inform you that you have been selected as a Callaway Nursing Scholar." The scholarship was mine, full tuition for my final semester, plus a stipend and guaranteed placement in their prestigious postgraduate program. I sat staring at the screen, tears blurring my vision as the realization washed over me. I had done it. Despite every obstacle, every sabotage attempt, every dismissal of my worth, I had succeeded on my merits alone. The day Megan returned from Paris, sullen and subdued, was the same day I received my official scholarship certificate. We were ships passing in the night, our trajectories suddenly dramatically reversed. The Callaway Scholarship changed everything. With tuition covered and the monthly stipends supplementing my hospital income, I was able to quit my assisted living job and focus on finishing my nursing program with excellence. For the first time in years, I had breathing room, physically, financially, and emotionally. The official award letter arrived in a heavy cream envelope with the Callaway Foundation's embossed seal. I sat alone in Rachel's apartment to open it, wanting this moment to be private. Inside was not just notification of the financial award, but a personal note from the selection committee. "Miss Mitchell, your perseverance in the face of significant obstacles demonstrates exactly the kind of character and determination our foundation seeks to support. We believe you represent the future of nursing leadership. Tears blurred my vision as I read those words. All the years of being overlooked, dismissed, and devalued seemed to fall away. Here was validation from professionals who had no reason to favor me, who had chosen me solely on merit. I called Rachel immediately, my voice breaking with emotion as I shared the news. She insisted on celebration. "We're going out tonight," she declared. "No arguments. You deserve this." That evening, surrounded by friends from my nursing cohort, I allowed myself to truly celebrate for the first time in years. No checking the time, no calculating how much sleep I could get before my next shift, no worrying about budget implications of a single night out. Benjamin organized a separate celebration at the hospital, surprising me with a small gathering in the staff lounge. The nurses and techs I'd worked with for months had pooled together for a cake and card signed by everyone on the unit. "The youngest Callaway scholar in hospital history," Benjamin announced proudly. "Mark my words, Allison Mitchell is going places." The warmth and genuine support from my colleagues overwhelmed me. This, I realized, was what real recognition felt like. Earned through hard work and genuine connection, not obligatory because of family ties. Grandma Catherine was over the moon when I called with the news. "I knew it," she said fiercely. "I knew they would see what your parents couldn't." "Have you heard from them?" I asked, hesitant to broach the subject. "About Megan's return." "Oh yes," Grandma sighed. "They're in quite the state. Robert is trying to leverage his connections to get the suspension removed, but so far the school is standing firm. Diana is redecorating Megan's old room to help her heal from the trauma. The girl cheated on a test, for heaven's sake, it's hardly a terminal diagnosis." I laughed despite myself. Grandma Catherine's bluntness was refreshing after years of my parents' subtle manipulations. "Will you tell them about my scholarship?" I asked. "Already did," she replied with satisfaction. "Your father changed the subject. Your mother asked if it was one of those need-based things for underprivileged students." "Charming," I muttered. "Don't let them dim your light," Grandma said firmly. "This is your moment. Enjoy it." 3 days later, I received a text from my father. "Heard about your scholarship. We should talk. Dinner tomorrow." I debated ignoring it, but curiosity won out. I agreed to meet them at a restaurant, neutral territory, where I could leave if things went south. When I arrived, I was surprised to find all three of them, my parents and Megan, already seated. Even more surprising was their appearance. My father looked tired with new lines around his eyes. My mother's perfect makeup couldn't hide her strain. And Megan looked humbled in a way I'd never seen before. "Allison," my father said, standing as I approached, "you look well." It was true. With adequate sleep and nutrition, I had regained the weight I'd lost. My complexion had cleared and the perpetual exhaustion had lifted from my eyes. Success, it seemed, was an excellent beauty regimen. "Thank you," I replied, sitting down. "How are you all doing?" An awkward silence followed until my mother spoke. "We wanted to congratulate you on your scholarship. It's quite an accomplishment." "Yes," my father added. "Benjamin Crawford called me personally. He speaks very highly of you." I nodded, waiting. There had to be more to this dinner than awkward congratulations. "The thing is," my father continued, clearing his throat, "with Megan's situation in Paris, we've had to reevaluate some things. The legal fees, the apartment we're still paying for, the additional expenses. It's been a financial strain we hadn't anticipated." "Ah, there it was. What your father is trying to say," my mother interjected, "is that we realize now that perhaps we should have been more equitable in our support." "We were wrong about you," my father said, the words clearly difficult for him. "Maybe you did deserve some help." I looked at each of their faces. My father's reluctant acknowledgement, my mother's strained smile, Megan's downcast eyes. This wasn't a full reconciliation, or even a genuine apology. It was a calculated recalibration now that circumstances had changed. Thank you for saying that, I replied carefully. But it's too late for maybe. I've already done it without your help. We could still help with your postgraduate expenses, my father offered. Or a down payment on a better apartment. Now that you've proven myself, I repeated, my voice level but firm. That's the problem, Dad. I shouldn't have had to prove myself to deserve your support. I shouldn't have had to win a prestigious scholarship to be seen as worthy of investment. I was always worthy. You just couldn't see it. That's not fair, my mother protested. We always believed in you. We just knew you were stronger, more independent. You used my strength as an excuse to give me less, I replied. That's not belief. That's convenience. Megan finally spoke up. I'm sorry, Allison. I didn't realize. I never thought about how different things were for us. Her apology seemed sincere if incomplete. She was beginning to see the disparity even if our parents still couldn't fully acknowledge it. I appreciate that, Megan. And I am sorry about what happened in Paris. I hope you can get back on track. The conversation shifted to safer topics after that. We ate our meals, discussed neutral subjects, and parted with tentative plans to speak again soon. No grand reconciliation, no dramatic forgiveness scene, just small steps toward what might someday become a more balanced relationship. As I drove home, I reflected on how differently I felt compared to the devastated young woman who had left that family dinner months ago. The approval I had desperately craved for so long now seemed less important. I had found validation elsewhere, in my own achievements, in the recognition of mentors and colleagues, in the strength I discovered within myself. My parents' belated acknowledgement didn't heal the years of favoritism, but it was a beginning. Whether we would build something meaningful on that foundation remained to be seen. But for the first time, I was approaching our relationship from a position of strength rather than need. The scholarship, the hospital position, the respect I'd earned, these weren't just professional achievements. They were proof that I could thrive without the support that should have been my birthright. They were evidence that my parents had been wrong about me all along. And that knowledge, more than any apology they could offer, was the true triumph. 1 year after winning the Callaway Scholarship, my life had transformed in ways I could hardly have imagined that devastating night at the family dinner table. I had graduated with honors from the nursing program and transitioned seamlessly into the Callaway postgraduate position at Riverside Hospital. The stipend and new salary allowed me to move from Rachel's apartment into my own place. A small but charming one-bedroom with abundant natural light located walking distance from the hospital. My relationship with Megan had evolved into something cautiously positive. After her Paris debacle, she had reluctantly enrolled in business classes at the local community college, claiming she was just filling time until her suspension ended. To everyone's surprise, especially her own, she discovered an aptitude for marketing and entrepreneurship. I still want to work in fashion, she told me over coffee one afternoon, but maybe more on the business side. Running campaigns instead of just being in them. You've always been good at getting people's attention, I acknowledged. Might as well monetize it. She laughed, a genuine sound without the competitive edge that had characterized our interactions for years. The funny thing is, I'm actually working for my grades now, and it feels good. Is that weird? Welcome to earning things, I replied with a smile. It's addictive. My parents and I maintained a cordial but distant relationship. They had made several overtures after my scholarship win. Offers of financial help, invitations to dinners, even a car they claimed they'd been planning to get for you anyway. I declined all material offers, but accepted occasional dinners, always in public places, always with clear boundaries. They were trying in their limited way. My mother had started asking about my work, though she still visibly cringed at my more graphic medical stories. My father occasionally sent articles about healthcare innovations. his way of acknowledging my profession's importance. The real healing, however, came from unexpected places. In February, Grandma Catherine suffered a minor heart attack. The family gathered at the hospital, our usual dynamics temporarily suspended in the face of potential loss. As a nurse now, I was able to translate medical jargon, ask informed questions, and provide competent care during her recovery. One evening, I entered her hospital room to find my parents already there. Instead of leaving as I might have previously, I simply took my place on the opposite side of her bed and began checking her vitals, a granddaughter and healthcare professional combined. "Your touch is so gentle," Grandma remarked. "Much better than that other nurse this morning. Handled me like a sack of potatoes." "That's because Allison knows what she's doing," my father said, surprising me. "Benjamin tells me she's being fast-tracked for the emergency department training program. Very competitive, apparently. The youngest nurse selected this year," I confirmed, trying to keep the pride from my voice. "We were wrong about you," my father said, suddenly staring at his hands. "Maybe we were wrong about a lot of things." My mother uncharacteristically reached across the bed to touch my arm. "You've become something remarkable, Allison. And you did it entirely on your own merit." The acknowledgement, so long awaited, washed over me with less impact than I would have expected a year ago. It was welcome, but no longer essential to my sense of self. "Thank you," I said simply. "That means something coming from you both." Grandma Catherine recovered fully and returned home with a new appreciation for the healthcare system and her granddaughter's role within it. The experience seemed to accelerate the tentative reconciliation with my parents, though we would never have the uncomplicated relationship I had once craved. As my professional life flourished, I found myself drawn to mentoring younger nursing students, particularly those struggling with financial or family challenges. I remembered how Benjamin had seen himself in me and extended a hand when I needed it most. Now I could do the same for others. One evening, while conducting a skills workshop for first-year nursing students, I met Jessica, a bright, determined young woman working 3 jobs to put herself through school. The parallels to my own situation were unmistakable. "I don't know if I can keep doing this," she confessed, after class exhaustion evident in every line of her body. "My parents think nursing is beneath me. They won't help with tuition unless I switch to pre-med. But this is what I want. Let me tell you a story." I began inviting her to coffee. About a year and a half ago, I sat at a dinner table while my parents gave my sister $80,000 for a fashion program in Paris. As I shared my journey, the struggles, the betrayals, the ultimate triumph, I watched hope reignite in her eyes. By the time I finished explaining the scholarship opportunities and connecting her with resources, she sat straighter, a new determination visible in her posture. "So they said you didn't deserve any help," she summarized, "and you proved them wrong in every possible way." "I did," I confirmed. "And now I help others do the same." That night, reflecting on our conversation, I realized how perfectly my experience had prepared me not just for nursing, but for this specific kind of mentorship. My parents' rejection had forced me to develop resources, resilience, and determination I might never have discovered otherwise. The pain they caused was real. The favoritism was unfair. The active sabotage was unforgivable. But the strength I gained, the independence I developed, the career I built, and the person I became, these were gifts that no one could take away. They said I didn't deserve any help, but what they really gave me was the most valuable lesson of all. I didn't need their help to succeed. I was capable of extraordinary things all on my own, and that knowledge was worth more than any check they could have written. Now I pass that knowledge to others. Not just nursing skills, but life skills. How to stand firm when others underestimate you. How to persevere when the road seems impossibly hard. How to build family from colleagues and friends when biological relatives fail you. How to turn rejection into the foundation for your greatest achievements. My parents gave my sister $80,000 to study in Paris and told me I didn't deserve any help. So I proved them wrong and found my true calling in the process. Have you ever had to prove someone wrong who underestimated you? How did it shape who you became? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this resonated with you, please like and subscribe to hear more stories of resilience and triumph. And remember, sometimes the people who believe in you the least give you the greatest opportunity to believe in yourself. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next video.